Taking place there. Let's carry on to one of the bigger news stories that we're also following today. Public Protector Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane has found that President Cyril Ramaphosa lied to Parliament. She says he breached the executive member's ethics code when he told Parliament he was not aware of a 500,000 rand donation to his ANC presidential campaign.
Releasing her report a short while ago, Mkhwebane made damning findings against Ramaphosa. She says he materially benefited from donations to his campaign and the allegation of money laundering has merit.
Having considered all this evidence and the responses from Section 79 notice and the various legislation and prescripts regarding whether the President misled Parliament, that the finding is substantiated. Indeed, the President misled Parliament. He should have not allowed himself to be responding the way he did, and he should have given himself time to respond or to request to be given an opportunity to go and prepare a response to Mr. Mkhwebane. And then the second question relating to the President improperly and in violation of the provisions of the Executive Code and disclosures of members' interests for the National Assembly, expose himself to any situation involving the risk of a conflict. This remedial action is also substantiated. The President exposed himself to the risk of a conflict between his private interest and his official responsibilities. By then, the President was the Deputy President of the country and was expected to disclose any financial benefit which he received. And again, his explanation that he didn't know about the donors and the donations. He attended the dinners, he addressed the donors, and there's evidence also that he was very actively involved in speaking to some of the donors because there's evidence in my position to that aspect. I therefore find that the President's failure to disclose financial interests which accrued to him as a result of the donations received towards the CR17 to be in violation of paragraph 2 of the Executive Ethics Code, and accordingly amounts to a conduct that is inconsistent with his office as a member of Cabinet as contemplated by Section 96 of the Constitution. Since the other political members or the other members are not members of Cabinet and were not or subjected to the Executive Members Ethics Act. Regarding whether there was any improper relationship and the suspicion of this money laundering, the allegation I'm referring it to the relevant authorities in terms of Section 6(4)(c) Roman figure 1 of the Public Protector Act, and the remedial actions which I'm taking. The appropriate remedial action as contemplated in Section 182(1)(c) of the Constitution with a view of remedying the impropriety referred to in the report are the following. The Speaker of the National Assembly to, within 30 working days of receipt of my report, refer His Excellency President Ramaphosa's violation of the Code of Ethical Conduct and disclosure of members' interests of Assembly and Permanent Council members of the Joint Committee on Ethics and members' interests for consideration in terms of the provisions of paragraph 10 of the Parliament Code of Ethics.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has not received the latest report by Public Protector Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane. The presidency says it's therefore unable to comment on that report. Mkhwebane has found Ramaphosa was in breach of the Executive Code of Ethics and misled Parliament in relation to a 2017 Bosasa donation. Mkhwebane was probing allegations that Ramaphosa lied to Parliament about a campaign donation of 500,000 rand. The complaint was laid by DA leader Musi Maimane, EFF Deputy President Floyd Shivambu, and a whistleblower. Let's continue following that story now. We're going to cross to our reporter Patricia Fasaki, who's standing by in Pretoria. Very good afternoon to you, Patricia. Take us through what happened at that briefing earlier on.
Well, good afternoon, and to our viewers. Certainly damning findings here at the Public Protector's briefing against the country's first citizen, of course, President Cyril Ramaphosa. Ultimately, I think the question is now what will be happening in the next 30 days after her findings that, after a large probe that looked into the complaint and some of the evidence that was brought before her. She then concluded that it seems like President Cyril Ramaphosa was well aware of how that 500,000 rands happened to have been donated to his then presidential campaign. And on that basis, and him bearing knowledge of how everything happened, he then went and basically lied to Parliament. So, and that's how she concluded that it means that he violated his executive's ethics code. And I think the big question now is, does this then mean, in essence, that the president then violated the country's constitution? And if that is a fact, that means he violated his oath of office, perhaps. So does this mean that we are now actually facing, or we're preparing ourselves for perhaps, or he himself is preparing for much bigger storm to come? If you take into considerations in her remedial actions, the public protector is actually roping in all the arms of accountability, that being Parliament, being the NPA, and of course the police, to look further into some of the evidence that have led to her getting to her conclusion that it seems like the president violated his executive's ethics code. And she makes it very clear that by virtue of some of the donations that were made towards his campaign, it seems like there may have been incidents of money laundering. She has given the NPA 30 days to give indication as to how they will be, of course, dealing with that particular aspect, and the National Assembly Speaker to also come up with perhaps plans and a strategy on how the president will be held to account in Parliament. So it seems like there's a lot that will be happening in the next 30 days to get to the bottom of what really happened here and how exactly the president will be held accountable. And she makes it very clear that at the time when these donations occurred, he was still the deputy president. And the country's laws make it very clear that it is unlawful for any company that is doing business with the state to make such donations to anyone that is part of the executive. So him having bared that knowledge, and he still went to stand before Parliament, and he, of course, deliberately misled Parliament, pretended as if he doesn't know. That goes to the heart of the oath that he took as the country's first citizen.
Patricia, there's a lot of talk around the Public Protector's recent findings. A lot of people saying that her office is being used to fight factional battles and political battles, and there's a so-called fight back campaign, and she's being used to conduct this work. Did she talk about this, and what was her response?
She definitely did. She touched on that, and her response was very simple, that she does not have any relationship with politicians other than the fact that she is the head of a Chapter 9 institution, and by the country's constitution she is obliged to investigate politicians as well, hold the executive accountable. And she also then reiterated that it is upon every citizen, regardless of their position, to respect the country's laws, in particular the country's constitution, and saying that she's just doing her job. She's not getting involved in any political factional battles or anything like that, saying that if the president and whoever else that's in the executive or any other politician has a case to answer, in particular as far as going as having violated the country's laws or having been involved in any criminal activity, then just like any other citizen that would be held accountable under the country's laws, then the president or any other politician must then also face the might of the law. And you would know that apart from, of course, today, her having issued the report on the president, there's another matter that's also making the rounds, and that is the matter involving, of course, Minister Pravin Gordhan. So obviously, by nature of the media being there, they touched on that as well. And basically what she is saying is all she is doing is she's dealing with the evidence that have been brought before her, and she feels that it is her constitutional duty to do right by the Constitution, and she feels everybody is equal under the law and she is just doing her job. So in a nutshell, that is her response, saying that she's not part of any political factional battle and she's not being used by any politician to fight their battles for them.
Patricia Visagie giving us an update of that briefing by the Public Protector a little bit earlier on. Let's